Good evening. We are here to talk live about A Quiet Place Day 1 and why it will make you rethink your entire life. Oh, yes, I'm supposed to be signing this, right?
We're going to whisper this entire episode.
No, we're not.
I was actually surprised there wasn't any sign language in this film. So I don't
Well,
know if you
Well,
were.
they
but-
didn't.
it's the first day. They didn't figure that out yet.
There were
And
no
nobody was deaf.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Or at
Do
least
you
not
guys
me.
know who? This is this director's second film. Do you know how he got this gig?
it had something to do with the first movie he made. It was called like Pig or something.
Yeah. Do you know what that movie is?
No, I don't.
It's like a bad
No,
horror. movie.
I'm the biggest fan of this actor in the world.
Nicolas Cage?
Yes, it's one of his best performances. So this director,
Obviously, because we both heard of it.
Michael- yeah, Sarnoski, he wrote that as his first film. So he wrote and directed both films, and both films have almost the same theme. I'm not going to spoil Pig because you should watch it, because when you get to the end, the twist will just like blow your mind. But I can see that he took these deep ideas and put them in this movie to try to get you to think about them. Some of them are going to be obvious, and some of them I think we'll uncover as we go along. So we're going to talk through this movie. Guys, if you're watching, throw your questions or comments out on YouTube. We'll talk about them live on this episode. So at the beginning, we meet Sam, our main character. She seems to be in some kind of support group. Now, I thought this was a really important setup. Her poem here, it's supposed to kind of clue you in on something, right?
Yeah, she did
Yeah.
not like she didn't like anything.
Yeah.
She's a very, it seems like a very maybe angry person, and everything seems to annoy her. The way this guy walks, the way this guy talks, the way this place smells, everything. So yeah, not a real happy person to start with.
Mm-hmm. I
And-
knew right then that was going to be her arc.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame her though. Things aren't going
Yeah.
so great.
Yeah.
I mean, at first we didn't really even know what she was in there for,
Yeah.
you know. But then when you find out why she's,
Yeah,
then you
she
can start to relate
walked
to her
by
a
that
little bit
sign
more.
that says hospice. So
Then you kind of realize that she's got health problems, she's got cancer, not doing well, and it's almost like she's giving up.
Yeah. She's got cancer. Her dad died of cancer. But for a long time, before we found that out, I thought maybe that she was in some kind of like drug recovery group. I thought maybe this was like an AA support group or something like that. But this must be an end of life hospice grief group, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There was a sign that said hospice something in the background there when she was walking after they had all broken for the day. So yeah, I think it's a place maybe. Yeah, just kind of you spend your last days. You got somebody there to watch you. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to watch movies like this and I'd be like, oh, what's this person's problem? But like now I immediately know, okay, they're trying to set this character up for some kind of transformation. So there's going to be some kind of character change. And I thought the first person to kind of show a picture of where she would head was probably the support group sponsor. Because if you look at them, they're almost like opposites. So he's pouring into people trying to like stop cycles of pain, and then she's like in her pain pouring out more pain, right? So
Yeah.
they're opposites, but I liked that character. I was kind of bummed when he died, but I thought,
Spoiler alert. Oh, by the way, there's going to be a whole bunch of spoilers in this. So if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want to know,
yeah.
continue
So
through.
you
So
watch the
that
movie,
happens
then come
pretty
back.
early in the
Yeah.
movie, so you're not.
Wa-
Yeah.
Watch it come back.
Mhm.
But yeah, he was definitely had to as negative as she was, he had to be like twice as positive. And I'm sure that's not easy to do.
No.
Well,
Yeah,
that typical like student good teacher or student cool teacher vibe.
Mhm.
He was kind of the leader of the group. And it wasn't like he was an uptight doctor or something like that. He was cool.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that in movies. And yeah, they had a good dynamic where she was the super negative, he was the super positive, and they just kind of butt heads as friends.
Yeah.
So
I had a vibe like, so they take that little field trip into the city because they're going to go see this puppet show. Doug, I guarantee you probably had.
Well,
the
I know
same
what you're
vibe
going to
as I
say
did.
right now.
You know exactly where I'm going with this. We're watching. What am I about to say?
Well, there's a handful of things. I was going to say start singing "Hit the Road, Jack," but
Yep. Okay, you're on the same page. So there's a movie called The Dream Team with Michael Keaton, and Christopher Lloyd is in it.
one of the funniest movies out there. I mean,
It's all these guys are in like a mental institution. You got a catatonic, you got a guy who thinks he's a doctor, one guy thinks he's Jesus, and Michael Keaton thinks he
very
played
angry.
hockey, and he thinks he was a writer. Or he was a writer, but he thought he played hockey. He thought he was a NASCAR driver because he got so many speeding tickets in Miami. He jumped an official on an ice at a Rangers game, so that doesn't make him a hockey player. He's got anger, but this doctor is like the cool guy, right? He's trying to keep them all together. He takes him into New York City for a ball game, and chaos ensues. And so when they loaded all these patients up with the cool doctor heading into New York City, she's looking out the window and she sees the city. And I immediately went, oh my gosh, this is like the dream team. They're going to go into the city and all hell's going to break loose here in a minute. So anyway, that's just a side thing. But
by chance that was an inspiration here, because directors and writers. So he wrote and directed this movie. I wonder if they write their influences into films sometimes, or do little Easter
and
eggs
could be
like
a
that.
tribute because I mean that is, it was a good movie.
Yeah, the Dream Team is a comedy. This one obviously is not, but it just still had that same kind of okay, a little darker.
Well, like you said, just a doctor taking patients into New York, and chaos ensues.
Yeah.
Well, it was
now
really
the rest of the
interesting.
movie is completely different.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's just something that's like so it's very possible he did that.
Yeah,
kind of as a tribute.
Knowing this director, I knew he was going to set something up pretty introspective. For those of you, we talk about some spiritual themes in movies here, but it's for everyone. So if you're not religious, don't worry. This is for everyone. This is the approach. I run a spiritual discussion group at a brewery with beer, so it's a non-judgmental version. But I thought this director, I don't know much about his spiritual beliefs. He hasn't said that much publicly, but I see them in this film and in Pig, and I don't know if it's intentional or not. I don't know if he's just really on the money with what he's weaving in here or not. Because like his movie Pig, for instance, Roger Ebert thinks that's like an R-rated biblical parable. Like it's really interesting. And I saw that too when I was watching it. I was like, wow, did he weave this in there on purpose? So in this movie at the beginning, you have basically like kind of like the purpose of man from Genesis 1, but the way they don't talk about it in churches. Basically, man is made in that story to be God on the earth and go out and make it better, right? So I'm looking at the sponsor in this group, and that's what he's trying to do. But if you look at Sam, like she's doing the opposite. She's pouring the chaos on. So looking at this movie, knowing the director, I know she's going to get out of that cycle somehow. And it's interesting that it's going to take an apocalypse to do that, but
Mhm.
that's cool. So I like the setup. Did you guys see that at all?
Probably not on at the level that you did. I mean, you know that her being the main character and having this problem, that she's going to have some kind of peace at the end of the movie. You know,
Yeah.
somehow she's going to find peace. Now, I had no idea how she was going to find it. I didn't know what her end would be, if she would survive, or if she would die, or whatever. But there would be something along the way that would give her peace. So you knew that was coming.
Yeah. And I loved the pizza idea that she was going into the city after it had been invaded by aliens and she still wants pizza. And you don't know why, but it's funny
Right.
because at first I was like, this feels like something they would say in a Marvel movie, except in Marvel it would be a joke. And here, like,
Yeah.
they're gonna make you think it's a joke or like a silly coping mechanism, and it turns out to be something pretty deep.
Well, when
Oh,
she
yeah.
said she was going into Harlem and I'm getting pizza, and she was there with I never did catch his Eddie. We're gonna call him Eddie
Eric.
right now because he
Eric.
was Eddie Munson in Stranger
Eric.
Things. Eric.
It's
yes.
Eric. Yeah.
You're
And
close.
she was like, I'm going to Harlem and I'm getting pizza. And he thought she's like, what? And she was dead serious on doing this. That's kind of the point where I realized that she knows I'm not going to get out of this. Like, even if I do get out of the city, like,
Yeah.
I need medical help. I can't get it. So I'm going to do the one thing that's going to make me happy. And I don't care what happens. And she kept saying, you don't have to go with me. I'm doing this. And that's her one thing that she needed to have. That's kind of the point in the movie where I realized that's probably going to be her, you know, like I said, she's going to find peace somewhere. That's the
Yeah.
one thing that she needed. And that was like her mission. And that was going to be. So I was like, she's either going to get the pizza and be happy, or she's not going to get the pizza and die. I don't know. But that's
Yeah.
the one thing that she needed to do. So it was kind of interesting how she showed right there, look, I ain't getting out of this. This is what I'm doing.
And will the pizza change her perspective on life?
Maybe.
I think that is that it. I don't know if it'll change her perspective, but that's her end goal. You know, and I can kind of see that. I mean, Drew, if I were dying of cancer and I only had a few days and aliens attacked, and you said, I'll take you where you need to go, where would you take me?
I'd take you down to Lorman, Mississippi to get you some fried chicken.
That or back in Danville.
Or we can go back and get some Wienerworks.
There you go. I would probably say Wienerworks.
Yeah, it's a little closer.
Yeah, it's a lot closer. But yeah, I mean, you know, that is so for those who don't know, I grew up Drew and I grew up about 10 miles away from each other. There is a hot dog place in Danville, Illinois. And if we took anybody else to this place who didn't grow up with it, it was like not great.
It's a hot dog.
Yeah, you took me there.
Oh, yeah, Nathan. Yeah, we took Nathan there, you know, and what'd you think?
It wasn't bad. I went home with a souvenir mug.
There you go. But to me, and
It's the greatest
probably
thing in the
Drew,
world.
that is the greatest hot dog ever.
Never had one better.
Never will. And it closed down, but I heard it open back up. So I need to.
I have to. I haven't tried it out yet.
Yeah, we need to go back and try that sometime.
Yeah.
Well, I get that.
But
'cause
anyway,
I have a favorite restaurant in
get
Indiana.
that. What's that?
Yeah, and I every time I go to Indiana, 12 hours away, I go to my two favorite restaurants, and I live in a different state. They don't have them here, and I think about them. But our relationship with food, it has something to do with psychology. Like it's linked
Well,
to
it's a memory.
memories. It's
Yeah.
nostalgia. Yeah.
Well, like I said, you know, you said the hot dog was okay. It was decent, but we've taken many people to our place and they're just like,
It's a hot dog.
it's hot. Yeah. You know, could have gotten this at the store and cooked it ourselves, and probably. But to us, I mean, you know, that 30-year-old grease they would cook, you know, fry those dogs in. I mean, that's what gave it the flavor.
Yeah. I have memories of on Saturdays going into town with my mom. You know, we have to go grocery shopping or we were going to the mall or whatever we had to go to. And for lunch, there were two places that we stopped. We rotated every Saturday, and it was either the Wiener Works or we went to Schroeder's, and which is also closed down.
Mhm.
But
All the good
yeah,
stuff.
you just have those memories of a kid, and it was a good time. I was there with my mom, my sister. I've got my foot-long cheese dog and my fries, and you know, you get that nostalgia and you get those memories. So yeah, it becomes, you know, the definition of comfort food. I'm very comfortable where I'm at with this. So I can totally understand why that you find out why that slice of pizza is so important to her, you know, because of her father. And I totally understood that when she explained that. And I'm like, yeah, I totally would do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's something about like a meal too that you shared with someone, like, you know, when your friends, like my one of my closest friends, you know, if I have a great beer, I'm going to send him a picture of it. That's what we do, right? So we have this deal, like when he dies, I'm going to go to his grave like once a year and I'm going to pour an awesome craft beer on it,
One
you
for your
know?
homie.
Mhm.
So like food connects people.
Mhm.
So it's more than just food.
Well, it's a religious experience.
Yeah.
You know, if it's something that is that powerful, you know, you've been in sermons and, you know, that song hits you perfectly, or, you know, the sermon really gets to you, you know, you walk out of there and it's just like, or even in the moment, you're just sitting there like, okay, this is a level higher. And
Mhm.
then when you just, you know, especially when, you know, Drew and I moved over here, we didn't go to Wienerworks every week. Now it was once a month, if, you know, hopefully. And, you know, it got even more important. It was like, okay, that one time a month, we're going to make it in Danville and we're going to get our Wienerworks. You know, it was that
Yeah.
amazing, you know, almost a religious experience. I'm not saying, you know,
Well,
better than, you know, God or anything, but it is that special feeling. And yeah, if it's only a few days left to live, you know, or God forbid, if I ever did anything that gave me the death penalty, they would track down a Wienerworks King Dog French Fry Delight mug root beer is
Yeah.
my
Well,
last meal.
she's doing this too, I think, to remember her dad who passed away.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
like this is a spiritual quest to her to connect to someone who's gone by eating the food and hanging out at the place that you used to connect with them at.
Mhm.
And I think that's pretty that's pretty deep, but what the movie does doesn't stop there. There's more.
Yeah.
So we'll meet this guy,
Yeah,
Eric.
it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you think of this guy?
I was surprised. I did not research this movie that much. So as I mentioned, well,
another
as you'll
movie
see
he's
when
in.
I mention next week, I was expecting Jamon. Wait,
Jamon.
Yeah, the guy
I had
that
it
he's
pulled up. I'm going to look it up
thought-
this time.
thought to
did you?
pronounce.
Jamon Hansu.
Yeah. The pee in it
Jamon-
more.
Yeah, I was like, oh, he must be in this one, and nope.
Yeah, I mean,
I
we
think he was
mentioned
in
it
this
on.
one less.
Yeah, we mentioned it on the last on
Well,
the short
it's
that will
coming
be
out
coming
next
out.
week.
Yeah, but we mentioned how he's briefly in the second one. So here's day one. You're thinking, okay, now it makes sense why that character was.
And he's in the trailer.
Yeah, so he'll have a bigger role. And no, no,
They just
In the
wanted to
game.
get you there.
Yeah,
But
so
we
maybe
did
on the
find out
next
his name.
film,
He was nameless until this movie. His name's Henry.
Henry.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
So maybe
obviously
the
there's
next
more
movie we'll
coming
actually
out.
get to see what he did. But yeah, he was. It was kind of a surprise.
Yeah, this Eric character was. Yeah, I thought it was going to be more focused on Henry, but I really liked this character, and I don't know what it was about his acting approach. The way he was written was very good. It was funny that he connected with her through the cat, and I swore
Mhm.
this cat. I was sitting there watching the cat, trying to figure out if it was like animatronics or CGI, because I swore there was something about the way that it runs that was funny. But then I'm like, no,
No.
I think this is a
It's
real cat.
It
And
was
I
a real
found
cat. They
out,
fought for that.
Yeah.
yeah, it was a real cat. Did you guys read about the lead actress's big fear?
Yeah,
I
so
guess
I
fear
did
of
when you sent me
cats?
that link that she
Mhm.
was terrified of cats.
Yeah.
She had to have cat therapy to get through
Yeah,
it.
so they did cat exposure therapy so that she could act with a real cat. I don't know why you would be afraid of a cat, but I I I think it's really cool that she decided to use a real cat here anyways. Because
Mhm.
it is very authentic. I'm not a huge fan of CGI animals, and I blame Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, but ever since then,
It's
like
gotten a
monkeys?
lot better.
they
So
pull
what?
me out. But this, you know, this director, he's seems to take a very authentic effects approach and things like
Yeah.
that. I mean, that everything the aliens looked absolutely awesome, like realistic to me. So it was cool. And they used an animal again, kind of like Pig, as a vehicle for coping almost.
Mhm. Yeah, that cat, man, that cat was a tough cat. Like it went underwater. It went everywhere, and that was. There's no way I could do that with my cats. My cats would. Well, you probably you've seen my cats. They fought on this show before.
What
So
would
it's like,
happen is we'd all be together and we're like, okay, Doug, grab Mammy. And then for some reason, Mammy would be in heat at that point and just sit there and go the entire
yeah,
time.
and then Daphne would
Stupid
get
cat.
mad and fight, and
Yeah, we would be dead in the first 2 minutes.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
poor
exactly what
cats.
I was thinking. Like, I get why they put the cats in here, or the cat in here for story-driven purposes, and I'm fine with that. But I was thinking on a practical standpoint. Like, my wife has 2 cats, I have a dog, and cats are not quiet. They
Mhm.
make noises. I think
yeah, that
if
cat
you
didn't make a
if you
noise the
took
whole
on
movie.
animal,
Aminal.
it wouldn't. Yeah, you would die a lot faster if you had a pet.
Yeah.
Unless it was
Well,
like a silent pet.
that's what I found funny was, when he went out to get the medication, the cat showed up and then they're walking back and the cat runs away and he's like, well, better go get the cat during this dangerous time where I got to be quiet. And it's just like, this guy is going way overboard. I mean, I love the fact that he's like, it's the end of the world. I can go to the water and be safe, or I can help this woman who I just met go get some pizza. I love that story. And the fact that he went with her, that's great. But Drew, what did I tell you and your wife when we walked out?
He said, just to let you know, I love you guys, and I would do anything for you or your children. I would put my life on the line for that. I will not save your cats.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's a little overboard. But,
Yeah.
again, I'm not a big pet person. So
He may have gone to just to save the cats because he knew how important Frodo was to her.
yeah,
So he's probably like,
but
oh,
so
I
was
gotta.
the medication.
Yeah, but she trusted me with this cat. I can't
Well,
come
this
back.
cat
I got your
been following
meds,
him
but I
the whole
lost your
time.
cat.
Well,
You
he
know.
didn't take the cat. The cat just showed up.
Yeah, it just showed up. But I think
I mean,
that's
I get it. I
probably-
get it. Yeah, I guess he's just
But I get
way more sympathetic. But there's no way I would risk
No, once
not
that cat
getting
crawls
her
out on
the
a beam,
medication.
yeah. If it crawls out on a beam and all these monsters around,
Mhm.
you're on your own, cat.
Yeah.
Find
So
your way back.
yeah, he is doing all of this for a stranger. We don't. The only line he really said is like, coming here to go to law school was the one thing I was supposed to do. And so you don't know what happened to this guy. You just know that there's something internally going on. He's been through something, and he's devastated at what's happened.
Yeah.
It's like he was on his own search,
Yeah.
going into this situation. But in that scene that you mentioned, again, I'm trying to figure out, like, did the writer and director, did he put some kind of spiritual theme in here on purpose or not? Because right before he crawls out on that beam, the way they frame it, there's a very obvious cross.
Yeah, I
It's a
noticed
burning
that.
cross in the background. And I looked at that and I'm like, well, that could that be coincidence? Or usually when they do something like that, the way the edges are ripped off, I mean, it's too perfect. It was too picture perfect, and it was framed to be the centerpiece in the background.
Mhm.
So I thought they're trying to tell us that he is like a Jesus figure to her. Like he's going to save her in a way. And that would pair with what happens, and it would pair with the setup at the beginning. She lost her sponsor, and here he's going to come and take her the rest of the way. So it's not just me, right? You saw that cross in the
Oh, yeah.
background in that scene
I saw
too,
the
right?
cross, and I noticed when they came out of the subway, they were in a church sanctuary.
Yeah.
So there's definitely I did catch those. I never looked at it as him, I guess, being like, that type of figure. Because what I was noticing with her is she, when you meet her, she's down and she's depressed and she doesn't feel like doing anything. And she meets this guy and she's trying to tell him to leave me alone. You got to go your own way. But she ends up like taking him in. And sure, he's doing his part to save her. And it's almost like giving her purpose again. And he actually, she gave him a purpose. He gave her a purpose. He had something else to do. He was determined. I'm going to help this lady. I'm going to get her meds. I'm going to get her through this. And at the same time, she was helping him overcome his own fears.
Yeah.
He'd have panic attacks, when they were in the water, and she'd have to like calm him down. And it happened again. He had to calm himself down when he was trying to get the cat, and he had to learn how to calm himself down when they were outside. So I liked how the two of those played off of each other. So in a way, they're both that same type of figure for each other.
Yeah, they both almost get each other killed because one will make a noise and then the monsters will come. But they both save each other too. So
Yeah.
like they put themselves at risk. I mean, she was real hesitant to be around him at first because I mean, if you get close to someone else, they might make a noise.
Right.
So they do put themselves at risk by connecting, by building relationships. But these two are both saving each other, unlike some of the other people who are panicking and drawing all of the creatures. I was baffled by how stupid some of the other people were, but I also think that might be realistic too. But the military, I get you don't know how high these things can jump, but they're flying around blasting these speakers telling people to be silent, and then of course their planes get attacked and they're getting blown up. It was like, wow, they're very slow to adapt to this situation. But I liked the dynamic between Sam and Eric a lot.
Well, if you notice though, the helicopters, when they were flying over and broadcasting, go here, go here, go here, that they always turned and went another direction to lead the monsters away.
I wondered, but I didn't catch it.
That's what they were doing. Is we fly and they follow our sound, so they swoop in and say, "Hey, go down to the South Pier," and then they fly back north, and all the creatures are supposed to be following them that way.
Okay.
And that's what's allowing the people to get out in the street and just walk down the street.
Yeah. By the time that
for a while
was over, by the time that scene was over, like I thought of that, but then they didn't show it again. So they were smart enough to think of those details. And that's cool.
Yeah, they're like, if we can get them to follow us here, they shouldn't have blown up the bridge. They probably should have kept the bridges open to kind of get those things off the island and then nuke the bridge. But
that is the goof on IMDb. It says
really?
that they nuked they blew up the bridges, but the aliens were already on both sides of the bridges because they showed that globe with all the stickers. So that's listed as a goof on imdb.com.
Yeah.
Well, that's something I was going to get into. We can, since we are kind of talking about it now, they're obviously making a universe out of this one. So it sounds like the family from 1 and 2 were done with their story.
Maybe is there going to be a Quiet Place 3?
What's that?
Is there a Quiet Place 3?
Well, I haven't heard anything yet.
there may be a sequel to this.
But yeah,
They've said
That I
it's
can see. I
very
know
well
there should
possible.
be
yeah,
one.
Jaemon Husan, he's too big of an actor to just cameo for nothing parts in 2 movies. So there's something coming with him. But the problem is, you make this universe bigger, you're going to have to answer a lot more questions. The first movie, small family, they just had a baby, everything like that. It's like creepy movie, cool about family, great movie. Part 2 the next day, but they throw in that prequel of, the day they arrive. And then you start asking questions. And now we're showing what happened the day they arrived in New York City, in, a larger portion of it. More and more questions started being, coming up, because it's like, we know in the original one that had to at least be 6 to 8 months in the future. I don't remember if they said there was a certain amount of time after the invasion, but when they showed it in part 2, Emily Blunt was not showing. So obviously at that point, she couldn't have been more than 3 months pregnant. So the baby had already been, or she was just about to have the baby and everything like that. So it had to be 6 months, if at most.
Yeah.
So in 6 months, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of, well, obviously there's not, because they still have to get to that island in part 2. Not a lot's happened in 6 months. Me watching this movie, those helicopters flying away and thousands of these monsters chasing after them, you would think that they'd be like, okay, well, let's find an area, bring them all there, and then just start dropping bombs on them. And then once that's done, we go back and pick up some more, and then just keep doing that. But in the original Quiet Place, I mean, they're out in the middle of nowhere, and his kid goes click, woo, and that monster's on him within 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So obviously they're still everywhere a minimum 6 months later. So they really need to tell this universe's story if they're going to continue to expand. Have we lost our entire military? Was this an attack coordinated by these aliens, and they literally landed most of their people on every single military base in the world, and then a few here and there? Because
how did they get to every city?
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like they attacked and we did nothing as a nation, yet a mom and her deaf child figured out how they can kill aliens in 48 hours.
Yeah.
I suppose
there is a Quiet Place 3 coming out next year.
Okay.
And Emily Blunt is in it, so it's going to follow the original family. Yeah, because she said that that Krasinski's working on it. It's separate from the spinoff, which is what Day One is, and that it was intended to be a trilogy. So they do have one more for Quiet Place 3. And I would imagine that, like Doug said, they're going to expand this into a universe where I'm sure there's going to be a Quiet Place year 1 or year 2 or something like that. And it's going to follow. I'm hoping it follows Eric and Henry.
Well, that's what they're considering.
Yeah,
because this has been a well received
it's
film.
really well done.
So we don't know what they'll do for sure, but they have talked about it's very well possible they'll make a sequel to this, which I would be down for, because one movie I kind of got won over by that guy. Yeah,
they have to make a sequel, and only because of what Doug summed it up perfectly yesterday about what he thought of this movie. And without a sequel, it's exactly what Doug said this movie is, which Doug said.
You want me to say it? Okay.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
said it was a really good. Oh shoot! What
He said it was really good, but
I'm blanking on the words I want to say.
He said that was really
unnecessary,
but unnecessary. Like, we really didn't need this movie.
Yeah.
And he's kind of right. If they hadn't made this, and they went just as straight to Quiet Place 3, that would have been fine. But they did make this, and it was good. But for order for it to really pay off, you have to have a sequel, and you have to tell what happens to those characters that you just introduced. Otherwise, this movie was pointless.
Well, I was going to say I have an idea of where it can go or where they'll probably take it, because that ship that Eric got on with Henry, there were a lot of people on that ship. In part 2, there are about 15 families on that island, and that's about it. So where did the rest of those people on that ship go? Unless they just dropped off a handful here, a handful there. But the island they were on was pretty big for the 15 families, maybe 50 people that were there.
Yeah, they need to go that way.
So obviously something happened between New York and that island.
Yeah.
I would think.
And I want to mention for listeners too, like this movie, it may be unnecessary for the franchise, but like to this writer and director, I think what he's trying to tell you in this movie and in Pig, so in his movies, I think he's trying to tell you what he thinks is going to fix our problems. Like what is going to change what's wrong with the world. I think that's what he's doing in both of those movies. So it's important for that reason, for the message, and it's entertaining, but we don't learn anything we didn't really already know about the franchise, except for Henry's name. So
and a little bit more detail on
drama.
what happened during the first day, because you see it briefly in the second movie. So this gives it a little bit more of how chaotic and how confused everybody is,
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what Jamon, his character, becomes, because we saw him for a couple minutes in part 2, and spoiler, the last you see of him, he's getting dragged out of that garage.
Eric's no.
Henry.
Yeah,
Henry in part 2, he's getting dragged away, where you automatically assumed, he just died. We didn't see him die. We saw him get drug away. So will he be in part 3?
He was dead.
Yeah. But
you assume, but
again, like I said, he is too big of an actor to have two tiny little that aren't comedy bits. Johnny Depp was in 21 Jump Street, the movie, for 3-4 minutes. Well, that was a comedic cameo. Just a character that has no significance. Really, he did.
You could have had anybody. You could have anybody play that role.
But you went out and got an Academy Award nominated actor to do this. So
was he and John Krasinski are buds?
Could be.
Maybe.
Very well could be. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen any theories or, anything like that. So I'm curious to see where they go with him, because he's just popping up here and there, Could he be an angel or something like that? Especially with all the religious undertones from this movie, Again, that's a wild theory, but
yeah. And I'll remind people that Krasinski has a Catholic background. So, he's one of the founders of this franchise and wrote the first 2 movies. So, we're somewhat speculating about things we see hinted at in the film. I can't say for sure why some of these spiritual themes are there, or if they're there, or if it's coincidence. But there seems to be enough that I think they're trying to say something.
Yeah.
And I did think it was really cool, and wondered what motivates Eric to go out there into the world to look for her medicine when she's going to die anyways, when he's definitely risking his life every time he does that. Like, what would make him go out there? And I think he's just doing it to make this person's last moments better. I think that's part of what the director's trying to say. He's trying to show you a character that's trying to heal the world in a way, or heal people. I think that's cool.
He says that one line, I came here to go to law school that's the one thing I was supposed to do. So it makes you feel like, to me, it sounds like he's just failing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was the impression I was getting. I came here to go to law school. So one thing I was supposed to do, and I'm not getting it done. So maybe he's looking at, I'm taking care of her because that's what I'm supposed to do now. Maybe that's my one thing I'm supposed to do right now is take care of her. That's my thing. And maybe he felt like I was a failure at this, but I can't fail at this.
And, a couple other ways. I mean, the way he played the character, he seemed like somebody who might be on the spectrum. And, I'm not saying, obviously he was at law school, so he's an intelligent person, but, so was, House's character, in TV show House, he was weird like that. So, he may have just been a very just straightforward, okay, finished high school. Now I go to law school. I'm going to go to New York City to do this. And all right, now I'm here at law school. I got to do only this. And then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. And it's like, I need a goal. What's my goal? And, they're like, go do this. But he's like, just confused. And, he's a good hearted guy probably. So it's just like, okay, I'll focus my goal on this because it's something to focus on with somebody else instead of just, I got to go south, So, I thought of that way, as he was walking out, the way he walked, it just seemed a very, I don't know, internal character, somebody who's just very, not outgoing person. But as soon as this craziness happened, it was like something switched and it's like, okay, well, now I got to focus on her. Kind of like what Drew said.
Yeah.
He's going.
Honestly, he reminded me when you mentioned that it's kind of describes my son, Jack, who is very structured. Like it has to be this way. It has to be this way. It has to be this way. And you throw any kink in there and it can disrupt his entire day. Like this wasn't done the way it was supposed to be done. Like following directions when he's putting together something, it's step by step. And I'll say, well, why don't you just throw that on there right now? Because I'm not supposed to do that till the 10th part. Well, yeah, but it's not going to make a big difference if you do it now. Well, I can't do that because it doesn't say to do it until the 10th part. That's how he is. So I get that structure. And I think you might be right with him. He's a very structured person. And I'm supposed to be like this. And now my world has just been rocked. What do I do now? What do I do?
He swam up from a subway, been underwater, barely got out alive, run away from, and then falls asleep, wakes up the next day, comes walking out, still has his tie on, still has a suit jacket, and it, it's as clean as it can be. He still has a shirt tucked in. If that were me, the coat would have been gone. I would have found me some tennis shoes. They finally found him some tennis shoes, but it was like, I would start gearing up for war or something like that, make sure nothing was going to be hanging down like a jacket. Everything would be tucked in. But no, he's just like, I gotta make sure my tie's up. Okay. So he's one of those overly OCD characters maybe. And that's what he needed was, my goal has been taken away from me. I need a new goal. And focusing on her, it's like, okay, there's my goal.
It's like he saw law school, which can be a great thing, right? As his purpose in life, or that's what was going to give him meaning. And with that taken away, yeah, he's having to think about like, well, is that really the purpose of life? So instead, it shifts to, hey, maybe these smaller things like helping the people around you and helping them survive the chaos of life, maybe that is like the meaning of our time here, or what we're supposed to be doing, which I think that ties back to that whole Eden thing. Like the world is chaos. In this movie, it's chaos. There's clearly a theme between like safe zones and then going out and risking, you're risking your life to go out into the chaos. I mean, there is some kind of safety exile, like Garden of Eden metaphor that you could read in there. It's really interesting.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I would really like to see that character again. And I
I
couldn't
hope they
put my
bring him
finger
back.
on it. Like, what is it about his performance that I'm just like, I'm watching him like he's following a girl. That's kind of creepy. That's weird. But there was something just really endearing about his character. And I think, Doug, I didn't think about it the way you described it, but yeah,
Yeah, I think
all
Doug's
that stuff
exactly
could be
right.
true.
He's still vulnerable,
Yeah.
and it's almost like had he not met her, there's no way he would have survived.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And so, yeah, I mean, she saved his life just by that chance meeting was it. But he became a stronger person as the movie went on. He became more confident, and it was really I think his performance was phenomenal. And I really hope that they do a sequel to this. Just because of that, I want to see what happens to this guy. I'm more interested in what happens to him than really what happens to Henry.
Me too. Me too.
I like
Even
this
though I like
character a
Henry.
lot. Yeah.
And
I just realized that Doug's wearing a Starcourt Mall shirt. It's a nice little tie-in to Eric.
Yeah, I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Yeah, it's a good
This was
one.
the next one on the rack, so I was like, all right, throw it on.
Eric, I thought, dang, I forgot what I was gonna say. One of those moments. We'll have to come back
It
to it.
happens, yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
yeah, it would make a really good story to see where he went after that. I hope they dropped off a handful of people in one island, a handful in another one, because he was not on the island when Emily Blunt showed up.
Right.
Yeah, I did think I was trying to
either
remember.
he's on a different island or he did not make it.
Which I'm hoping that's not the case.
I hope he's on a different island.
And Sam, I'm just gonna mention, like, her acting was phenomenal too, and I thought she could really convey a lot with her eyes. Like when she looked scared, she looked freaking terrified. So it was really a really good performance, I thought.
Oh, she's great in everything she does. I mean, she was in Us, the Peele.
That's the one Peele film I haven't seen.
Yeah. Oh,
so
really?
I didn't know.
And you see those, that scared look in her eyes.
It's on the cover.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was her.
Yep. She was in Black Panther. She was great in that. She was
Mascatana from Star Wars.
in Star Wars. I mean, as bad as those movies were, her voice sounded good.
Voice was in it, yeah.
Yeah, her voiceover was great. I haven't seen it. She was in 12 Years a Slave. She's an Oscar winner. So, she's got some game, definitely.
Wow, I did not know all that. Yeah, she was
Yeah,
good.
She's very, very
look
good.
at her. Just go down her IMDb page and you're like, oh yeah, she was in that. Oh, what? She was in that? Oh, okay, I get you. You're just seeing.
I thought these were like new up and comers, and I guess Eric was, but it sounds like she's, got a lot on her resume.
Yeah. He is the only thing I know Eric from, other than, and it took me forever to realize that this is who this was I know him as Eddie from Stranger Things, and other than that, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
It's going to be Johnny Storm in the new Fantastic Four.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, other than that, there's not a lot of things that look familiar.
Yeah.
But he
was a good actor.
So I think he's done a lot of stuff over in UK before he came over here.
Probably like TV, British TV and stuff like that. But he's a very, very talented actor also.
Oh yeah.
I could tell.
Yeah.
And this director can pull it out of them too, because like I mentioned in Pig, he pulled the best performance out of Nicolas Cage in his career. And you see that again in this film too, from other people.
Check that out.
So what about the scene when they finally make it to the bar and they get the pizza? Like, what were your impressions of this scene? This is where the movie went from dark to getting a little more lighthearted and having some fun for a little bit.
Yeah.
That was very emotional. First, when they showed up and her place was blown up, that was, I got a little choked up. I was just like, oh, she made it, and yet she's not going to be able to finish her quest. But then, yeah, when he shows up with that pizza and starts, jumping up on the stage and he's doing the magic trick, and like there's a audience and they're being dead silent while doing this. That was, again, I got choked up. That was very emotional. He is doing everything he can to give her one last decent day in this hell that they woke up in. So yeah, that was really, really cool. And, I think that's a great message to throw out there. In the worst of times, people can be nice to each other, especially people as different. You got a British college kid and, African-American woman with cancer who's dying, his future is all ahead. And, all she's thinking about is the past. And it's just complete opposites coming together and being good to each other and nice to each other. And it's just a great message, which we all need right now. So
yeah,
it's, it reminded me of, like, sometimes it always seems like it takes something bad to get something good out of it, whether it comes with family, there's family members that we don't speak to or whatever. And then you get a tragedy or death in the family, and then everybody comes together and it's like, okay, let's patch this up and let's make it better. And unfortunately, it took that to get us here. Another example that I can think of, and I was just talking to a guy who is from New York City. He lives in the Bronx, and I was at a Billy Joel concert last week up in Chicago, and we were just talking, and I don't know how we got into it, but we talked about, it reminded me of 9/11, because he was in New York when it all happened. And I said, the thing is, though, after that 9/11, it was such a tragedy. And it's one of those days that you'll never forget where you were at and what you were doing. But it brought everybody together like I have never seen this country put together before. There were no Democrats. There were no Republicans. There were no left wing, right wing, yuppies,
white,
nothing. There was none of that.
Yeah.
It was Americans. That's all it was. We were neighbors. You were strangers, but you didn't treat anybody like a stranger. Everybody you met was your friend at that point. And the way it brought, the country's knocked to its knees, and we got right back up because everybody united. And that's kind of what it's showing in this. This tragedy is happening and people are dying and it's horrible. But you can still have humanity, and you can still be nice and kind to your neighbor, to a stranger that you don't know. There's nothing wrong with that. And it doesn't matter what your views are on this or that or whatever. We're all here together. So let's work it out. Just be nice to everybody.
I think this writer and director is trying to put that on film. And it was interesting for me, the timing of watching this movie. I won't go into it. I won't get political, but we did just have that first presidential debate 3 days before I saw this movie. And to see that, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is not going to help us as people. And then I watched this movie, and I'm certain that, this writer is trying to show us the antidote to help all of us and help us get things back on track. So I think he's doing that on purpose and putting that in these movies. So the scene in the pizza place, or I guess it was the bar, right? I mean, that was so cool to see. This guy, Eric, who was terrified earlier in the movie, he's been so petrified and he's had panic attacks, and yet he's also conquered that and gone out and gotten her medicine and and went out and gotten her pizza. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I was in this situation and there were aliens around, I probably wouldn't risk going out to get very much at all unless I was about
Yeah.
to die. But his
That pizza
part of
didn't even
his
look
arc
good.
is coming over those fears to take care of her when
Mhm.
like she would have died in the church, I think, if he hadn't gone and gotten the
Oh,
medicine.
absolutely.
Oh
So
yeah.
all he's doing is buying her, like, I don't
Fun
know, a
time.
week, a few days,
Mhm.
and he does it, and that's
That's
just
what she
really
wants, yeah.
cool. Yeah, because well, what if you did give up on someone, and yet there was some way they could have survived? Who knows? Maybe she could have come across another stash of medicine. So it's cool that like he didn't look at her and like dismiss her because he thought there was no hope for her. I liked that.
Yeah. And he picked a great series to do it on because like we talked about the first couple movies, it was more about family to John Krasinski than a horror movie or an alien sci-fi movie or something like that. And now this guy's coming in with this message. Krasinski, I don't know how many people, well, a lot of people, obviously, because millions of people have seen it. But did you guys remember during the pandemic, he had that show, Some Good News, on
Yep.
YouTube?
I didn't catch it.
Each episode was about 15, 20 minutes long. And he came on YouTube during the pandemic. He's like, with all the negative stuff going on in the world with the pandemic and everything else, I think there needs to be a decent news show. And he would do this from his house. His kids would do the artwork for the, SGN, Some Good News, his wife would come in and he would just get tons of celebrities to come and help him. Like he found out about this one couple that was getting married during the pandemic. Well, they couldn't have the wedding. So he got them together and they got married on his show online. And then he got the entire cast of The Office to jump online and do their dance from the Jim and Pam wedding episode.
Oh, wow.
Every single person that was at that show was on that episode.
That's
great.
really cool.
He did something, for prom for high school and, just all these things. And then he would do good news. And then every once in a while, he'd be like, now it's time for the weather report. Who do you have on there? Oh, Robert, how's the weather? And then see the back of some guy's head, turn around and be Robert De Niro. And he'd be like, it's okay. Thanks, Rob. All right. It's just like this random stuff, but it was all positive stuff. And, he talked about all the medical people and the people with essential jobs that had to work through the pandemic. And, he was doing so much for them. And it was really cool. If you haven't watched him, you should definitely just look up Some Good News on YouTube. And
That definitely fits. Yeah.
So, he is that kind of person. He's very positive. He wants good things.
Mhm.
And it seems like, definitely Emily's the same way. Emily LeBlanc, his wife, they have so much fun together. You can tell they're in love and they just want to do positive things for the world. And, he did that with A Quiet Place 1. He did it before his family because it was to show what he would do for his family. Now this guy comes in and it's like, what would you do for a stranger in the worst time possible? Would you help him out? And that's just a good message.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool. Towards the end, it did cross my mind when Sam is trying to help Eric get to the boat. It did cross my mind. I thought, well, who's going to make the sacrifice here? Is it possible that he ends up sacrificing himself for her here? I mean, you could
where I
argue
thought
he's
that was going.
already done that in the movie, but I thought, whoa, dude, if he sacrificed himself, and I think he was willing to, for somebody who is going to die anyways, like that would be quite a whopper of a statement. However, I knew I thought about that, and then I thought, but the setup, it's her arc. She's the one that has to decide that she's going to turn from, hating the world and deciding it's all worthless to, you know what, there's stuff here that's good. There are people worth investing in. Um, so from the director, he stated that this film had two themes. So this is what I can officially say from him for sure. Revisiting your past life to help you learn to live again. And we see that. That's her arc, which completes at the docks. And then finding another person who opens you up. So the idea that we need each other and that it might take someone else to get you out of a hole or help you come back to life in a way. And I think that's what Eric was that for her, but you could almost argue that Sam was that back for Eric too, based on
yeah, they were both
the
there for
crisis
each
that
other.
we don't know much about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, final thoughts. Do you recommend this film?
Yeah. It's if the first two, I highly recommend, and I mean this goes right along with it. As Doug said, it's a good movie. Not necessarily something that we needed, but I'm glad we got it. I think it's an interesting take on the human aspect of how people react in times of crisis. And yeah, I would highly recommend going to watch this movie. And I don't know why I didn't think about this before either. Doug, you said earlier, going on a journey, right? That's her journey is to get this pizza. Her cat's name is Frodo.
Oh, good
Yeah.
reference.
The
Nice.
Hobbit journey.
Yeah, and they're going on you said journey, and it just Frodo is her name of her cat. So it's kind of interesting
good
how they
catch
named
there,
the cat Frodo.
God, wait, why didn't I catch that?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's
It just hit me when you said, that was her journey, and I'm like, Frodo's journey.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I highly recommend this movie, but I want to throw out a caution to whoever continues this story, or just if this universe is expanding, you got to pick your details and make sure they're solid. Because I look at the beginning of this movie and end of this movie, when they run down and they're trying to turn off the generator, what was her friend's name? I forget. Ruben. So they're running down, they're trying to kill the generator, and they turn it off, and then they sit there, and it's like, okay, we did it. We did it. He turns around and his shirt rips. Boom, dead. Now come to the end of the movie and she's like, you run for the water. She's running around, smashing windows, alarms going off. She's running, stomping her feet. She made it out of there. All right.
They went after him.
Yeah. And it's like, what? How sensitive is this hearing? Because they were in the basement. They were in the basement of this building turning off the generator. And he rips his shirt and it's like, oh, there's one.
Yeah.
But as soon as she starts running and smashing stuff, they're all like, and I get maybe the alarms throw off their senses a little bit, but still.
I figure in some places you have to give them a gimme,
Yeah.
I thought, well, maybe the generator attracted them to the area and then they were close enough that they could hear the rip. But yeah, there were other times where they're talking in the rain and they're talking fairly loud, or they're yelling in the apartment. I'm like,
I think they established in the last one, white noise is okay.
Well, in the first movie, when they were
down by the creek.
Yeah.
And
the kids start freaking out.
Yeah. As long as you're talking.
But this is day one. They don't know what's okay and what's not. So maybe, you can't have a movie with no dialogue, because you felt it in this film. It was a slower pace. We needed some dialogue. So maybe for practical reasons, they did some stuff. But we need to know some rules, and we got to figure that out for the next one, because they could they could lose us if they don't tell us, what can and can't these aliens hear.
Well, they did show when they were under the awning and the rain was coming down, she stopped and very cautiously whispered and like waited and like nothing happened. And I think that's how she figured out, okay, that's louder than us. So if we're down
Yeah.
here, they can't hear us. They're going to hear that instead.
Yeah.
So she just kind of pieced it together. But yeah, I mean, but you have to be consistent with your rules though. So
Yeah,
just make sure that it's, you know, those are the rules that you've set
Yeah.
forth. You have to stay with those.
Because, like I said, these are great movies, great
Yeah.
stories, great messages. But when you start getting away from that and trying to tell a more expanded universal story, unless they already have it set where they're going, you've got to make sure you hit those rules, or, you know, we've got to know what happened in the rest of the world.
Mhm.
Because, yeah. Otherwise, it's like, okay, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do this? Why, you know, obviously they chase helicopters, take all the helicopters outside of New York City, drop a bomb, go back, get more, drop a bomb. All right, let's do a wider circle, get more, drop a bomb. You know, it's like, because I get bullets don't go through them, but, you know, those bullets they shoot off of those planes are that big. So that's going to penetrate their skin. They'll go through tanks. They'll go through an alien bone shell. Definitely.
Yeah. And I also highly recommend this film. It felt more tense than the others, almost more scary almost. It's probably the most realistic and the most gritty. So beware of that if you're not a fan of horror, because this one's probably a little bit. I told my
Gory.
wife, I don't know if you'll like this one. It might be a little too scary for you or not, but she loves the others because she's a sign language teacher. So that was really cool for her.
And I
but,
shouldn't say
yeah.
gory. I'm sorry. There's not, you know, it's
Not
not like
gore,
you see
yeah.
people blowing up, but you do see a lot of people taken.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did feel like I put in this thumbnail life altering because I think it's not that the movie and what it does for the franchise is life altering in any way. It's a very solid movie, but what the director's trying to say with the film is something that could be life altering. Like, I wish I could be like Eric, you know, and the more examples that I can see of that, I know how hard it is. I've been through a lot of stuff. I'm sure you guys have too. Like, we do need each other. So like the more examples we can see of what we want to be, I think the better, because we get that picture in our head and we can do it, you know. We can go get pizza.
I agree.
Absolutely.
It's a very good message.
Oh yeah. So,
Well,
cool.
Good film about breaking cycles in the apocalypse. Breaking cycles when you would think it wouldn't matter anymore. We're going to drop an episode a week from today on some behind the scenes stuff on A Quiet Place parts 1 and 2 and some hidden themes you may have missed. So look forward to that, and we will catch you guys again soon.
Good night, y'all.